is looking increasingly likely that Britain and the EU will not agree a trade deal before Britain officially exit the EU on March 29th. A no-deal Brexit means that there will be no free trade between Britain and the EU after this date. Even though officials from both sides of the negotiations are working tirelessly since the motion to leave the EU was passed by referendum in Britain in 2016, there still has not been any trade deal put in place between these two institutions.
No deal is looking currently the most likely outcome and would have major implications on trade between member states of the EU and Britain. The most prevalent implication of a no deal would be high tariffs placed on imports and exports and potential trade war occurring as a result. We will look at the implications of a no deal and a trade deal on both the EU and Brexit.
This leaves Britain with two options when negotiating with the EU. Option 1 would be a no deal. A no deal would result in Britain facing high tariffs when trading with the EU and abolishing the free trade that they had benefited from since joining the EU in 1973. Option 2 would be to attempt to make a trade deal with the EU which would reduce the barriers to trade that they would otherwise face. UK exporters could face the potential impact of £5.2 billion in tariffs on goods being exported to the EU. EU exporters are likely to face £12.9 billion in tariffs on goods sold to the UK.
While many of the big countries in the European Union are angry at Britain for leaving the EU, Germany, France, the Netherlands and Ireland will be most heavily impacted as these are Britain's largest trading partners in the EU. This is a major shock to these nations' economies as they've been operating with free trade in place in Britain since it joined the European Union in 1973. As we can see from the graph below, France will face tariffs of 1.4 billion on exports to Britain. Germany will face tariffs of 3.7 billion, the Netherlands will face tariffs of 1.6 billion and Ireland will face tariffs of 1.3 billion. But as well as this, the UK goods will be taxed by the following amounts by their trading partners. France will impose tariffs worth 707 million, Germany 859 million, the Netherlands 644 million and Ireland 768 million. As a result of these tariffs, both the EU and Britain will be affected.
The vehicle industry will be most heavily affected in terms of trade between Britain and the EU. EU vehicles exported to Britain will face tariffs of £3.9 billion and British vehicles exported to the EU will be tariffed by £1.3 billion.
Trade wars are not only detrimental to the two countries involved, but also detrimental to the consumers within those countries as they increase the cost of production, increasing the cost of goods. Currently, China and the US are in a trade war in which Trump announced that the US would levy heavy tariffs of 60 billion of imports from China. The administration also said it would limit US technology transfer for Chinese companies. Shortly afterward, China cancelled all US soybean import contracts. China imports 12 billion in US soybeans yearly.
But what we believe as international business students is that a trade deal will be agreed between the two parties before the deadline of March 29, 2019. We believe this as it is in the best interest of both parties to limit tariffs on goods placed under international trade.